Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen of my Alpha family. Sit down, lean in, and silence every whisper of doubt that has ever danced in your mind. Tonight, we don't whisper back at the world. Tonight, we roar. Because there comes a moment, a sharp and thunderous moment in every beast's life when the mask falls, and those who dared laugh at you finally understand they were never mocking a fool. They were performing in your theater. You let them laugh. You let them dance. You let them gloat and whisper and spread their illusions like disease. And all the while, you watched, patient, unshaken, waiting. You see, they called you the joke because they needed to. It made them feel warm in their cowardice, safe in their weakness, validated in their smallness. It was their only way to look into your eyes and not fall apart. They mistook your silence for ignorance, your patience for weakness, your struggle for failure. But this game has always belonged to the one who controls the tempo. And you, my warrior, my alpha, my relentless shadow walker, you have always controlled the tempo. They didn't know they were playing on your stage, under your lights, trapped in your script. But they will. Oh, they will. They thought your pain was proof of defeat, but pain is just pressure. And pressure is how diamonds are born. They saw your fall and toasted their own false glory. But you were never on your knees. You were crouched, ready, breathing in every insult, every betrayal, every smirk, not to break, but to become unbreakable, to mutate, to transcend, to evolve. You see, you are not what they thought. You are what they fear, because there is nothing more terrifying than a soul that rises with scars instead of excuses. You remember the way they spoke about you when they thought you weren't listening. You remember the crooked smiles, the side glances, the way they whispered your name like it was a punchline. Good. Let it burn into your bones. Let it electrify your resolve. Because today is not the day of revenge. No, revenge is too small, too personal. Today is the day of revelation. Today, they see the truth, that you were the observer, the quiet storm, the wolf pretending to limp so the prey would gather closer. Understand this. There's a dangerous kind of silence that lives in kings and queens before they rise. A silence not of surrender, but of strategy. You weren't absent. You were absorbing. You weren't behind. You were biding time. And now, time has run out. Not for you, no, for them. Because the lights have shifted. The curtain has lifted. And you, my fierce, relentless phoenix, you are not crawling from ashes. You are rising from the grave they thought they buried you in. Smiling. They thought you were the fool. But the joke, as it turns out, was always on them. Because it wasn't you who played yourself to sleep. It was they who danced like clowns in a play they didn't even know they were cast in. While you sharpened your mind, while you bled in silence, while you sculpted muscle from trauma and vision from rejection. Now they look at you and they see something they can't explain. A shift, a power, a storm with no name. You've heard it before. You've changed. No, my alpha family, you didn't change. You became. You became what they feared you might. You became the proof that pain does not destroy. It purifies. That failure does not end. It educates. That isolation does not weaken. It hardens. They thought you were the audience, but you were always the director. You wrote the plot twist the day they laughed at your silence. And now, they have front row seats to your uprising. The irony is delicious, isn't it? How those who pitied you now mimic you. How those who mocked your vision now chase it. They tried to erase your name, but now they can't stop speaking it. Not because you begged for recognition. No, but because power has a gravity all its own. And you, born of fire and pressure, carry that gravity in your stride now. You don't ask for validation. You radiate inevitability. That is what unnerves them. Let them murmur. Let them stew in the discomfort of your glow. You owe no one an apology for surviving what they never had the courage to face. You were crucified in gossip and came back crowned in purpose. You didn't get lucky. You got brutal. You didn't find yourself. You forged yourself. In sweat, in silence, in exile. And when the wolves came, you didn't run. You watched, you waited, and then you made them run. Because predators don't need to bark. They just need to exist. You know the truth now. That being doubted was your greatest gift. That their mockery was fuel. That every time they looked down on you, they built your throne a little higher. Now they can't ignore you. They can't escape the spectacle. You were never their fool. You were their test. And they failed. They failed because they measured you by surface standards, by temporary losses, by half-finished stories they overheard from people too shallow to see depth, too weak to understand grit, too insecure to recognize power in disguise. They failed because they thought the loudest in the room were the strongest, and they mistook your silence for surrender. But silence is the sound of strategy, and strategy always wins wars. Not noise, not gossip, not empty pride. Real power walks without making a sound until the ground starts to tremble. Let them gasp. Let them choke on their own surprise. Now that the tables have turned, now that the shadows they mocked rise behind you like wings, now that the game they thought they mastered begins to crumble in your favor, let them watch you stride through the fire they set for you, untouched, unburned, reborn. Because this is the part they never prepared for, the part where you don't just survive, but dominate the part where your name becomes a lesson, where your face becomes a symbol, not of pity, but of precision, of unrelenting vengeance wrapped in silence. You are the reckoning they never thought would arrive. They thought your setbacks were signs of weakness, but only fools mistake the cocoon for the corpse. They laughed when you struggled, not knowing you were building muscle in places they never even trained. You were finding vision in places their eyes couldn't reach because they were too busy staring at the mirror while you were staring at the mountain. And now they wonder how you got here so fast, how you evolved so fully, and so they don't understand that what they called wasted time was your construction period, and every brick they threw became part of your foundation. You didn't ask to be doubted, but you needed it, because comfort does not birth legends, and applause does not sharpen blades. No. You needed the sting of being overlooked, of being misunderstood, of being ridiculed, because that pain turned your skin to armor and your heart to fire. They thought they were hurting you, but they were hardening you. They thought they were exposing your flaws, but they were revealing your hunger. And now that hunger cannot be undone, cannot be silenced, cannot be sated until everything they said you couldn't have is not just yours, but engraved with your name. Do you feel it now? That pulse in your chest, that voltage in your veins? That's not adrenaline, that's remembrance, that's power, remembering its source. That's every moment you stayed quiet, when you could have lashed out every time you swallowed rage and turned it into resolve. That's every lonely night, every broken plan, every moment you thought you'd break, becoming the very thing that makes you unbreakable. They didn't know that pain sharpens the blade. They only knew how to throw it. They didn't know it could be caught, molded, reforged into something deadly. Now they know. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to be understood by the mediocre. Because destiny speaks in frequencies. Cowards can't hear your purpose. It's too loud for their shallow minds. It echoes through your scars, through your stride, through your silence like a war drum, calling you to conquer. And now that they see the beast they thought they buried, they are scrambling to rewrite history. They want to say they supported you. They want to say they always believed, but the truth is tattooed in their actions, not their words. And the truth is, you walked through hell while they watched and laughed, but you didn't die. You evolved and they hate it because you didn't need them. You didn't need permission. You didn't need saving. You just needed time, and they gave it to you unknowingly while they were busy celebrating your downfall. You were studying theirs while they were gossiping. You were grinding while they were sleeping on you. You were waking up to your true self. And now, the world feels colder to them because their sun is no longer above them. It's behind you, casting your shadow over everything they once thought they owned. You are no longer proving them wrong. You are proving yourself right. And that is a different kind of power, a silent power, a sovereign power, the kind that doesn't roar but resonates, the kind that doesn't seek revenge but becomes the standard, the kind that doesn't flex but dominates by simply existing. Now, they look at you with the eyes of the defeated, not because you said a word, but because they can no longer say yours. Without feeling their own failure attached to it, they thought you were the fool because you didn't scream back. But fools scream, warriors build. So build my alpha family. Build higher, build louder, not with noise but with legacy. Let your name carry weight, not from volume, but from victories. Let them tell stories about how you came out of nowhere. Let them pretend they didn't see it coming, because denial is their only shield from the truth. And the truth is, you never needed to explain yourself. You only needed to endure long enough for the storm to clear, and for your empire to rise from the ashes they thought were your end. Now look around. Do you see them, the same people who once dismissed you? Now, mimicking your steps, trying to replicate your focus, asking for your advice, studying your mindset. They want the outcome, but not the origin they want. Your strength without your struggle, your clarity without your chaos. But they will never have it, because what you built cannot be duplicated. It was forged, not printed. It was bled, not borrowed. It was earned in the trenches, not inherited in comfort. And that is something their imitation can never recreate. This is what happens when the underestimated become undeniable, when the discarded become divine, when the mocked become monarchs. The stage is turned, the lights are on, and you are no longer the joke. You are the genre, and they are still clapping, confused, whether they're fans or fools. But it doesn't matter anymore, because your rise was never for them. It was in spite of them, and that is what makes it so devastating, so final, so pure. It is pure because it was born without compromise, without shortcuts, without applause. It was born in silence, in sweat, in sacrifice, in the deafening loneliness where only the obsessed survive. It was born while they laughed, while they doubted, while they walked away from you, thinking you were done. And now you walk past them, not with arrogance, but with indifference, because their opinion no longer holds weight. In a world you've already conquered, they are echoes in a room that no longer contains you. Shadows cast from a light they'll never stand in. They wonder how you did it, but they'll never understand because they didn't see the nights. You wanted to quit the mornings. You woke up numb, the hours you sat with your own mind, battling doubt, like a war that never stopped, and yet you showed up every single time. Not because you felt strong, but because you refused to let weakness be the end of your story. That is what separates you. That is what terrifies them. It wasn't talent, it was torment, turned into tenacity. It wasn't luck, it was loneliness, turned into leadership. And now they feel the shift. They feel it. when your name is mentioned and the room goes quiet. They feel it when your silence speaks louder than their noise. When your actions move mountains while they're still debating where to start. They feel it when they realize that the very person they tried to erase now holds the blueprint to everything they tried to become. And they hate it because it means they were wrong. Not just about you, but about themselves, and that is a wound they can't hide. So let them flinch, let them sink into the discomfort of watching your prophecy unfold. Let them sit front row as the stage they mocked you on becomes the platform you rule from, because you are no longer part of their drama. You are the director of your own destiny, and you owe them nothing, not even your anger. They do not deserve your fury. They deserve your absence, your success, your silence, because silence is the loudest reminder that you never needed to fight back. You only needed to move forward. Forward without fear. Forward without compromise. Forward with scars. Not as signs of damage, but as proof of survival. You wear your scars like armor, and they can't understand why they no longer cut you. They don't see that the pain that once bent you now bends the world around you because you learned the truth, the brutal, holy truth, that no one is coming to save you, and no one needs to when you become the storm. They will say you changed because they don't recognize discipline. They only know distractions. They will say you're distant because they don't recognize focus. They only know flattery. They will say you're cold because they don't recognize peace. They only know chaos. But you do not need their understanding. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be undeniable, and now you are. And they feel it, like gravity, like time, like fate, collapsing around them. This is the price of their arrogance, the debt of their underestimation. And it is paid, not with violence, not with vengeance, but with victory, the kind that leaves them speechless because it didn't come from proving them wrong. It came from proving yourself right. It came from walking alone until the world had no choice but to follow it. It came from building in silence until even your shadow looked louder than their noise, and now they see you, not as the one they mocked, but as the one they missed, the one they overlooked, the one they will never touch again. You do not need to announce your power anymore. Your presence says everything. Your discipline says everything. Your peace says everything. And they can't handle that because they thought you needed their approval. They thought you needed their attention. But what you needed was the fire. And they gave it to you unintentionally when they tried to burn you down. They lit the very flame that forged your empire. So walk now, not as someone who survived, but as someone who was sculpted. Walk like the weapon they didn't see coming, like the empire they can't dethrone, like the force that no longer bends for anyone, because you are not here to fit in. You are here to shift the axis, and now that you've shifted it, the world turns differently, and they know it. Even if they don't admit it, they feel it every time they see your name, every time they hear your silence, every time they remember how wrong they were. And that's the final blow. Not your words, not your wrath, but your results that cannot be denied, cannot be ignored, cannot be undone. They live with it now, they wake with it now, and you don't have to do a thing because your success is already screaming the truth. They tried to silence, and now we arrive at the moment they never imagined, the moment they feared. In the silence of their own thoughts, the moment they whispered would never come, but felt breathing down their necks in the quiet spaces of their lives, when the crowd left and the spotlight dimmed, when all their performance faded and only the truth remained. And that truth is you were never the fool. You were the storm hiding in plain sight. You were the lesson wrapped in silence, the reckoning dressed in humility. You were the mirror they avoided and now they can't look away, because now it's not about them anymore. Now it's about legacy, about what you build without them, about what you shape in the aftermath of betrayal. Now it's about how high you rise, not just to spite them, but to fulfill the destiny they could never have carried, because this power was never meant for the shallow. This crown was never meant for the counterfeit. This fire was never meant to warm the hands of those who laughed. While you burned, it was meant for you, for your hands, for your will, for your name. Your name now echoes, not in anger, but in awe, not in rumor, but in reverence, not in slander, but in silence. The kind of silence people hold when greatness passes by, when the presence of a storm reminds them of their own fragility, when they realize too late that they were never watching a fool fall, but a titan kneel before rising higher than their minds could ever climb. You do not chase revenge, because that would be looking backward, and everything about you now is forward. Motion, forward, fire forward, domination. Your silence is not absence, it is elevation. Your distance is not retreat, it is reign. Your calm is not weakness, it is war in perfect control. And now they know. Now they finally know. They know. You saw through it all. Every fake smile, every hidden jab, every time they called you delusional behind your back while stealing pieces of your vision for themselves, they know you endured what they never could and came out cleaner, sharper, colder, not broken, but reborn, not smaller, but sovereign, not empty, but eternal. You were the one they laughed at until the laughter dried up and the results became deafening. You were the one they called a dreamer until your dreams outgrew their reality. You were the one they dismissed until they saw their world shrinking in the shadow of your success. They thought it was a game, but you were never playing. You were building. So now let them relive every moment they thought they won, because now those moments play back in their heads as regret, not memory, every time they turned away, every time they smirked, every time they said, "You'll never make it." It replays now like a broken loop, because they understand now that they weren't laughing at a fool. They were performing for your rise. They were background noise to your origin story. You do not need to remind them, the world will do it for you. Every headline, every move, every step you take now is a monument, not just to your success, but to your resurrection. And that is something they cannot touch, because they were never built for the fire. They only knew how to throw it. They never understood that some people walk through fire not to be burned, but to become flame itself. And now that flame wears your name. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them try to rewrite their roles in your story. But you know the truth. And the truth is power. You never needed their belief. You needed the battle, and you got it. You never needed their validation. You needed the vision, and you lived it. You never needed their love. You needed their doubt, because doubt was the doorway, and you kicked it open with blood and bone and silence and fire. And when they tell the story, now it won't be about how you failed. It will be about how you rose and they fell behind. Not because you pushed them, not because you punished them, but because they paused when you persevered, because they laughed when you listened, because they clung to comfort while you carved a new reality with your bare hands. Now the world turns differently because you walk in it now with eyes that see through illusion, with a heart that no longer seeks permission, with a spine that bends for no one. Not because you've become cruel, but because you've become clear. You are not here for revenge, you are here for remembrance, and they will remember. They will remember the silence they mistook for weakness. They will remember the fall they thought was your end. They will remember the smirk they wore as they watched you struggle, because now that smirk is gone, replaced with the bitter taste of reality that you were never the clown, never the pawn, never the fool. You were the architect, and they were the entertainment. So stand now, not with a heart seeking applause, but with a soul that has outgrown it. Stand with the quiet dignity of someone who no longer needs to prove a thing to anyone. Stand in your truth, the same truth. They tried to bury the same truth. They mocked and feared and underestimated until it became undeniable. Let them wrestle with the shadows of who they thought you were while you walk in the light of who you've become, because they were never your enemy. They were your evidence of how far you've come, evidence of the fire you survived, evidence of the kingdom you built, from rejection, from ridicule, from ruin. You owe them nothing, not a word, not a whisper, not a moment of explanation. They played their part in your story, and that part is over. The curtain has closed on their relevance, and the spotlight now burns for you, not because you chased it, but because you became it. And when they speak your name now, it will echo with the weight of regret, with the chill of realization that you were never the fool. They were never the judges, and this was never their stage. This was always your world, your rules, your rise. So wear your scars like a crown. Walk through their doubt like it's